Hello, my name is Keshwani. That's Keshwani, Keshwani. We are here because we want to prepare for the GMAT. We have been solving GMAT math problems out of this book here, GMAT Review, the official guide, the 13th edition. If you do not own this book already, purchase one immediately. You're going to need it. This book consists of 230 problem solving questions, 174 data sufficiency questions. We have solved every single math problem from this book already. If you're interested in watching the original solutions to the problems, you will find the original solutions from day number 1 through 250. Right now we are in the process of redoing the problems at a little bit of a faster pace. We are on page number right now on 276. Please turn to it. Page number 276 and problem number 21 is what we're about to do. Problem number 21. In problem number 21, we're being asked what percentage of drama club is female. What percentage of drama club is female? Let's see what they are telling us in the two statements. In the first statement, they tell us that 40% of females in the school are in the drama club. Well, if 40% of the females in the schools are in the drama club, but 40% of what? We need to know the number of females, and we also need to know number of males. Not the total number of males, but the number of males that are in the drama club. M stands for total number of boys in the school. We need to figure out how many boys are in the drama club. We need to figure out how many girls are in the drama club. Even if we knew the total number of females in the school, we can figure out 40% of that, but that still would not tell us how many boys are in the drama club. This information is not sufficient. This information is not sufficient for two reasons. First of all, we do not know how many boys there are altogether in the school. Plus, we need to know how many boys are in the drama club. We need to know the number of boys in the drama club. There is no way to figure that out. This information is not sufficient. A, D, B, C, E. Because the first statement by itself we just established is not sufficient, we know the answer cannot be A or D. It will have to be B, C, or E. Let's look at second statement. Second statement tells us that 25% of boys in the school are in the drama club. Again the same problem. We know it's 25% of the boys, but what is the number of boys? We do not know 25% of what? 25% of what? 40% of what? We do not know the number of males. So second statement by itself is also not sufficient. And when we put them together, the problem is not going to go away. We still need to know the total number of females in the school. We still need to know the total number of males in the school. And nowhere in the problem it tells us that. Therefore, even putting them together does not get us anywhere. The answer is E. The answer is E. Because what we are looking for is this. We know 40% of females of the schools are in the drama club. So that's how many females are in the drama club. We also know it's 25% of the males. But we do not know this figure of M and F. Without that, we cannot figure out this ratio. 40% of female divided by the total number of people in the drama club, which is 25% of boys and 40% of the girls. But how many boys and how many girls? Let's look at the next one. Number 22. Number 22. We are told that we drove 50 miles. We are told that the trip was 50 miles long. The question is, what was the average speed? What was the average speed? Now, in order for us to figure out the average speed in the trip, it's quite evident that we know that we drove 50 miles, we know the distance. In order to figure out the average speed, we need to figure out the total time that was spent. Somehow, if we can figure that out, this is what we need to figure out, total time. We can figure out the average speed. That's what we're looking for. Keep that in mind as we look at statement 1 and statement 2. Now keep listening, okay? Watch what happens. So we're looking for, somehow we have to figure out the total amount of time that was spent in the trip. Problem number 22 is what we're doing here. Now, if you happen to glance at second choice, statement number 2, okay, listen very carefully. This is not typically what we do. Typically, we look at statement 1 first, just the force of habit here. But if you look at statement 2 clearly tells us that it took 54 minutes, I believe it tells us somewhere. It tells us plainly that it took 54 minutes. But there you go, we're looking for the time. They tell us the time. We can clearly figure out the average speed. We don't actually have to do it, and we're not going to do it, but that clearly tells us the time. So here's what's going on. Typically we set it up like this. We typically set up our problem like AD, BCE. AD, BCE. Let's keep this thing, okay? Now this is a setup when we start with first statement, which is what we do most of the time. But here we're dealing with unusual situation. We're looking for the time, and statement 2 clearly tells us what the time is, 54 minutes. So instead of having this setup, what we're going to do is move the B here and move the A here. Now the second statement by itself is quite sufficient by itself. That tells us that the answer cannot be A or C, A, C or E. It will have to be either B or D. If it turns out the first statement by itself is also sufficient, then the answer will be D. If it turns out that the first statement by itself is not sufficient, then the answer will remain B. You understand? Let's look at the first statement. It says we drove the first 30 miles at 60 miles per hour, and then the remaining 20 miles at 50 miles per hour. Again, we're not going to spend our time. It will take an inordinate amount of time to figure out the total amount of time that we spend traveling here. But listen, here's what I want you to do. Just to satisfy your curiosity and just to get extra practice, what I want you to do after you finish watching this video is to actually figure out how much time it takes to make this trip here. This part is very easy. 30 miles at 60 miles per hour. You're taking 2 minutes per mile. You're going 30 miles. Oh, at 60 miles per hour, sorry. So you're traveling 30 miles at 60 miles per hour. I caught myself because it couldn't have been 2 miles per minute. It couldn't have been 2 minutes per mile. I thought you were going 30 miles per hour. It's not 30 miles per hour, you're going 60 miles per hour. I caught myself because had we been going 30 miles per hour, listen very carefully. Had we been going 30 miles per hour, we would have taken 2 minutes per mile. In that case, 30 miles would have taken 60 minutes altogether just for this segment. Plus we have this 20 more miles to go. But we already know it's 54 minutes. They never contradict each other. Information in the two statements, they never contradict each other. So this is what I'm trying to make you understand. What I want you to do is figure out the amount of time that you're going to take to make this trip here. This is very straightforward. It's going to take 30 minutes to go first segment. Figure out exactly how many minutes it takes here, and you will see that it will take 24 minutes to make this segment, 20 miles. 24 minutes plus the 30 minutes is going to give you the 54 minutes. It has to. But it's not necessary. What we need to understand here is that it is possible to figure out the total amount of time that we need to make the trip from this information. This tells you how much time it takes. It takes 30 minutes, and here we have the speed, here we have the distance. We're going 20 miles at 50 miles per hour. Obviously, we can figure out the number of minutes. We add up the 2 minutes, and we'll have the total time that we need. Second statement by itself is also sufficient. Second statement, it turns out, rather, the first statement by itself is also sufficient. The answer is D. Answer is D. It turns out that both of these statements by themselves, each of these statements by itself, is quite sufficient. They do the job nicely. The answer is D. Number 23 rather. Number 23. So if you find that of the two statements, one is easier than the other, or perhaps you do not understand what they're telling you, what information they're giving you in the first statement, if you're having trouble understanding what they're telling you in the first statement, or if you find that it is too time consuming to analyze it, and if you find that this information in the second statement is easier to deal with, there's nobody to stop you from doing second statement first. Just change the setup. Instead of A, D, B, C, E, it becomes B, D, A, C, E. You understand? Usually we do A, D, B, C, E. A, D, B, C, E. Just switch them. This becomes B and this becomes A. It becomes A, C, E. Understand? Number 23. In number 23 they tell us, or rather they ask us the ratio of boys to girls. We're looking for this ratio, boys to girls. This is the ratio we're looking for. What's the ratio of boys to girls? That is the question here. Let's see what the first statement tells us. The first statement tells us that there are 3 times as many girls as boys. Well, there you have it. It clearly tells us what the ratio is. There are 3 times as many girls as boys. Obviously, we can figure out the ratio of boys to girls. The boys to girls is going to be simply boys, and the girls are 3 times as many as boys, so it's 3 times the boy. The ratio is 1 to 3, obviously. It's simple enough, because there are 3 times as many girls. First statement by itself is enough. AD, BCE. AD, BCE. Because the first statement we just found out is enough by itself, we know the answer cannot be B, C, or E. It will have to be either A or D. In the second statement, they tell us that the number of boys is 1/4 of total. 1/4 of total. Well, if the number of boys is 1/4 of the total, that implies that number of girls would have to be, if boys are 1/4, the girls would have to be 3/4 of total. If boys are 1/4 of the total, then it stands to reason that the girls must be 3/4 of the total. And now we can figure out the ratio of boys to girls. It's very simple. Boys to girls is 1/4 of the total. Boys are 1/4 of the total, and the girls are 3/4 of the total. But there you go. Same as before. The fourth is going to come out, cross out, and we end up with 1/3. Same as before. It's not going to change. As I told you before, the information that is given in the 2 statements, they never contradict each other. Do you understand? Second statement by itself, we just saw, is also quite sufficient. We didn't have to do all of this. You understand? We didn't have to do anything. We didn't have to do any of this thing. We just have to understand from this statement that if the boys are 1/4 of the total, the girls will have to be 3/4 of the total, and as long as we know the fraction of boys and girls of the total amount, we can figure out the ratio. We don't actually have to do any of this. You understand? The answer is D. The answer is D. Number 24, the last one on the page. The last one on the page. Give me 1 second. Number 24. It says that we have a sequence. S has 300 terms. We have a sequence, they're calling it S, or maybe perhaps they are calling it S, I don't know. If the sequence S, they're calling it S, so I thought we were calling it S, but the sequence S we have, which has 300 terms we are told. The question is, what is the 293rd term? Let's find out, shall we? Let's find out. Well, we are told in the first statement that 298th term is 298. Well, I must have made a boo-boo because this sounds too goofy. 298 terms of S is negative 616. Well, obviously I did a banged up job here when I was doing it. 298th term is 298th term, we are told, is negative 616. Now, had they simply stopped at that by simply telling us that 298th term is negative 616, that's not enough. We cannot figure out what 293rd term is, but they go on to tell us something else. Let's see what they tell us. And they tell us, and each term after the first term is 2 less than the preceding term. Each term after the first term is 2 less. They go down by 2. So now we can figure out. Again, what we're about to do right now is a waste of time. This is not something we'll do in the real exam. We just simply have to realize that if we know the 298th term is this amount, and they always go up or down. Doesn't matter whether they go up by 2 units or whether they go down by 2 units, but we know now that there is a fixed amount, and we know the fixed amount, the difference in the two succeeding terms is 2. We can figure out whichever term we want. So 298 is negative 616. This is a waste of time, as I told you before. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do this in the real exam. 297, 296, 295, 294, and 293rd. The question is, what is the 293rd term? We just each term after the first term is 2 less, so they're going down. So this is 614, 612, 610, 608. Turns out negative 606. I come up with negative 606. The 293rd term we're being asked is negative 606, but of course, as I already told you several times, this is not something we're going to waste our time on in the real exam. The point here is that the first statement does the job quite nicely. The first statement does the job quite nicely. A, D, B, C, E. Because the first statement by itself is enough, because the first statement by itself is sufficient, we know the answer cannot be B, C, or E. It will have to be either A or D. Let's look at second statement. In the second statement, they tell us that the first term is negative 22. Is that all they tell us? First term is negative 22? Well, that's all they tell us. Then there's nothing we can do with that. Simply knowing what the first term is, it does not enable us to ascertain what 293rd term is going to be, unless we know what is known as the arithmetic difference. Arithmetic difference is a term the mathematician used to describe the difference between the two consecutive terms. We have to know how much does it go up each time, or how much does it go down each time. We have to know the difference here. And simply knowing that the first term is negative 22 does not give us that information. The second statement is not sufficient by itself. Answer is A. Answer is A. Had the second statement turned out to be sufficient by itself also, in that case the answer would have been D. But as it stands right now, the answer to this problem turns out to be A. That's all I have for today. I'm not going to start the next page there. I'll see you tomorrow. And as I explained to you before, we were going to just do a few problems every day until we get to the end of it. Do you understand? Bye now.